We just need to have conversations with our customers and our prospects too. I got more out of a 5-minute conversation with this person. And I learned way more about what their challenge is, what they're trying to get their clients or their customers to do. I learned more in 5 minutes than from like a 5-page click here, click there survey, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about having that conversation. And I think the challenge for me, Paris, was like, how do I have these conversations, right? That was the missing link. I'd heard people like me saying, talk to these people, dang it. Well, how? What am I going to like reach out and say hi and just bother them? Some people would do that, but I always felt bad. So the turning point there was actually inviting them on a podcast, because the flip is it's a gift. Like, you've given me a gift by inviting me on your podcast. I'm stoked, man. I'm so excited to be here. And so that's what a podcast does for your prospect, your customer. What a great way to start a relationship with a potential future customer.
Every SaaS company plays for high stakes, but what does it take to dominate the market right now? Welcome to Paris Talks Marketing, the podcast where we dive deep into the latest trends and strategies in SaaS marketing that are really working today. I'm your host, Paris, and our guests are SaaS CMOs, founders, and specialists, and we discuss one trendy topic in the industry per episode. Ready to unlock the true power of marketing strategy? In this theme, we'll explore the world of cutting-edge marketing strategies and tactics that are shaking up the SaaS industry. We'll share insights on testing new tactics and uncover the latest developments from digital landscape giants like Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'll also explore how AI is revolutionizing the digital landscape and transforming marketing tactics. So grab your headphones and get ready for a marketing strategy masterclass with Paris Talks Marketing. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Paris Talks Marketing. Today, my guest is Casey Cheshire, a lifelong marketer, serial entrepreneur, and adventurer. Casey's passion for podcasting led him to founding Ringmaster Conversational Marketing. Ringmaster helps B2B businesses launch podcasts that drive growth and revenue. He also serves as a fractional CMO to several growing B2B professional service firms. Previously, Casey founded and ran the top Salesforce Pardot marketing automation solutions partner in the world for 10 years before a successful exit in 2021. He's also a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, where he served in the infantry and was deployed to some very hot climate. In his free time, Casey likes to skydive, climb mountains, and pretend to be a hungry bear for his 2 kids. Casey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paris. It's great to be here.
Same. It's great to have you. I want to steal a page from your own playbook with my opening question here, because I loved it when you asked me this a few weeks back. Can you help us bust a myth in marketing that a lot of people subscribe to, but really shouldn't believe anymore?
Yeah, man. Stop playing games with your prospects. Stop playing games with your customers. I spent 10 plus years running a company, helping people send more and more emails and try to figure out what people were thinking. I spent years even prior to that, just in the marketing trenches, trying to get those clicks and get people to notice me, right? So my myth today is stop playing all these games. That's the bust, right? We play first game. Okay, first game is notice me, right? So we're all doing this, we're all running around, and we're gonna go to a conference in some really cool place. And they were like waving our hands around, or maybe just sort of standing there silently at a booth that we spent way too much money for. And we're hoping that if we're calm or quiet enough or loud enough or have the cool enough giveaway, that people are going to like come over and say hi, and they'll learn about us and then buy our stuff, right? It's such a stretch, right? I think we're all a little bit delusional as marketers because everyone else is doing this, and I'm guilty of this, right? I'm not saying that I didn't do this too. I did. I played that game of like, notice me, but then just when you finish that game and they have noticed you, there's more games you play, right? The next game is, okay, well, now that you've noticed me, can you please hop on a call with me or with someone on my team, someone in sales on my team, right? And they're like, no, they don't want to get on a call with you or your team. They probably just met you. They don't really want to get on a call. So this second game is like, how can I trick you to get on a call with me? Now we might throw some free coffee or socks from the university you went to try to, entice you emotionally to get on.
Our Amazon gift voucher.
Yeah, gift cards. But these aren't like logical reasons to get on a call. It's like, well, shoot, I'm not doing anything. And I would love a hat from Patagonia Yeah, I might as well do that. Here, I'll hop on a call but I'm not paying
Mhm.
attention, right? I'm on that call. So that's the second game, and it's crazy, and it drives me bonkers, man. Once you see these games around you, I'm sorry, but sorry, not sorry. It's going to be hard not to see them and to stop playing them. Like, you just stop playing
Mhm.
these games, right? Because there's a third game, which is even worse. While I'm trying to get you to notice me and get on a call, which you don't want to do, I also want you to ignore everyone else, right? All those other people saying, notice me. No, no, no. Please don't notice them. And please don't notice anyone else also trying to get you in a call. Ignore them completely and just hop on a call with me. And then somehow you're going to buy my SaaS, right? You're going to buy my tech, something in there. I'm going to
Mhm.
badger you until it happens, right? This is what we do in marketing. It sounds silly, but if you boil it down, if you get rid of all the tech talk and all the really cool jargon, we're playing these ridiculous games. And I did this for like 10 years. And then on a whim, I started a podcast, right? I just wanted content. I wasn't even thinking about the kind of conversations I was going to have. I just thought, oh, I'll get good thought leadership content, fuel the machine, right? I wasn't even thinking
Mhm.
about anything other than let's fuel this marketing machine, this marketing automation monster, right? Let's give it more content to get on landing pages, on email nurture campaigns, right? But this amazing thing happened. I started talking to people who were actually ideal customers. And lo and behold, I learned a bunch of things. I learned
Mhm.
what keeps them up at night. I learned what their problems they're really trying to solve are. I learned where exactly does the solution that I was marketing fit into that whole realm? Is it the most critical thing? Is it not?
Mhm.
Right? I realized they're people and they have families just like me. And all
Mhm.
this time I had been behind the tech, right? I think sometimes we're in marketing because if we were really people, we would be in sales, right? But we're kind of like sort of people
I like
persons,
the way you put
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not really, we're not in sales for a reason. But all this tech, you can hide behind it. And instead of thinking about the face and the name, we're thinking about the ones and the zeros. I don't care if you're in HubSpot or Salesforce. We get so wrapped up in the reports. How sexy can these reports get that we forget they're real people? So for me, this transition happened as I just started a podcast. I thought, what could possibly happen? Nothing bad, right? I'll just get good content. No, I got way more than that. I actually learned my buyers. I understand their pain. And guess what comes from that? I suddenly had a vision for how to help them again. I had gotten so sort of in my own little echo chamber. And we get this
Mhm.
too. If you're going to Dreamforce every year, or you're going to, HubSpot or Marketo, their conferences, you're
Yeah.
going to
SaaS
marketing
stock,
tech
where I
conferences.
just came from last week.
We were in our little thought bubbles. So to break out of that, all
Mhm.
you got to do is talk to your customers. So my myth today is stop playing games and just go and talk to your customers. And I've never found a better way than just launching a podcast and interviewing them on it.
Yeah. And I suppose, is that what led you away from the Salesforce Pardot world and then into starting Ringmaster?
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine doing
Mhm.
something. And I love marketing automation. I would talk about it. I would do like 4 webinars a month, right? I just love teaching people about it. It's so fun and exciting, but there are always these challenges. And I think as marketers, we have this secret, unspoken worry that we're not sure if we're actually doing anything. I think that's what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I think the entire organization we work for is probably more openly asking that question. What are you
I think
doing
it's a
here?
special form of imposter syndrome just for
It
marketers.
is, man.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's right. I think sometimes we
Yeah.
aren't doing
It is
anything. So,
fair.
we toot our own horns a lot and sales is just delusional, but maybe we aren't actually doing anything. And you don't really know that if you keep staring at numbers, because we all know those numbers can be crazy. So yeah, spending so much time doing that. And then to realize I got more out of a 5-minute conversation with this person. And I learned way more about what their challenge is, what they're trying to get their clients or their customers to do. I learned
Mhm.
more in 5 minutes than from like a 5-page, click here, click there survey, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about having that conversation. We just need to have conversations with our customers and our prospects too. And I think the challenge for me, Paris, was like, how do I have these conversations, right? That was the missing link. I'd heard
Mhm.
people like me talking before saying, talk to these people, dang it. Well, how? What am I going to like reach out and say hi and just bother them? Some people would do that, but I always felt bad. Yeah, I could get a case study from you, but if you're a prospect, what? I'm just going to ask you things and you're going to just volunteer your time? No. So the turning point there was actually inviting them on a podcast, because the flip
Mhm.
is it's a gift. Like, you've given me a gift by inviting me on your podcast. I'm stoked, man. I'm so excited to be here. I'm honored to be here. You're giving me the gift of your time and attention, and you're sharing your audience with me, your listeners. And so I feel gracious and I feel so grateful for being on this show. And so that's what a podcast does for your prospect, your customer. You invite them on a show, they're not going to say no like a sales call. They're going to say, "Wow, yes, are you sure you want me on it? Like, this sounds great." Now, what a great way to start a relationship with a potential future customer.
Yeah. And so you're working now with Ringmaster. You're helping brands to launch podcasts for the first time, right? And create brands. And does that also have to do with creating a personal brand from the host of that show that is connected with the company brand?
It's a good question. You don't have to create a personal brand for the host, but you do typically create a new brand for the show. And the
Hmm.
show shouldn't really be called like my company's podcast, right? Now, hanging out with Paris and talking marketing, I think it's fantastic, right? Oh, hardcore marketing. I was so great having you on that show, right? These are brands unto themselves. They might tie into our existing brands or our companies, the SaaS offerings that we have. But more importantly, the show should be focused on your listener. The show should be focused
Hmm.
on your buyer, right? So if you sell marketing software, marketing technology, make it a marketing leadership show. Sometimes we try to make it about ourselves and about what we're specialists in. We want to make it about what our customers are specialists in. So there's a lot of thought that goes into what do I create around this brand, and what does it look like? What does the album artwork look like? Those kind of things to really express what we wanted to say. But the number one goal of all of that is to get your guests to come on the show. If it looks
Hmm.
silly, if it looks janky, it looks like you spent $3 on, it's not even Fiverr, it's like three-er, right? You didn't even spend the $5. If it looks like you didn't really put time and attention into it, they're probably not going to want to join because it might risk something on their career. But if it looks awesome and they're honored to be on it, wow, yeah, I'd love to be on that. Thank you.
You mean the customers, get your customers on as guests, right?
Yeah.
Customers and
Prospects,
prospects.
customers, partners,
Hmm. Yeah.
referrals, all the people you want to talk to.
Yeah. One of the things that I encounter both personally with this show and talking to other podcasters is the challenge of growing an audience. We've been at this now for over 2 years, but we haven't amassed a huge audience yet. Still waiting for the breakout moment. But why shouldn't a podcast show or host get discouraged if the audience isn't getting huge over time?
Yeah, a couple things there, right? One, you probably need an executive producer, right? Everyone that
Mhm.
has a podcast has a producer, they're producing the show. But a lot of times when you're in the weeds, or if you're producing it yourself, right? You're producing the show. You need someone to take a step back who's been a producer, but who's really thinking like a marketer, thinking about how can we grow this show. So oftentimes what I'm
Mhm.
doing with podcasts is acting as an executive producer, saying, okay, what do we need to change? Maybe there's some certain things we can change that might help with the audience growth, might help with these other things, some
Mhm.
low hanging fruit there, right? So sometimes you just need a third opinion to just look in the situation and go, what's going on here? But what I will say as a second point to that is it's really challenging when the number one goal is listeners. That's really challenging. That's where pod fading comes from, right? Pod fading is this term where you start a podcast and 3 to 12 episodes later, you stop a podcast. And there's
Yeah.
millions and millions of them that have done this. Thankfully, yours hasn't. Thankfully, mine hasn't. But it's hard because people get a couple shows in, they had a good time. But if the metric they're looking at, responding,
Mhm.
and it doesn't right away for anyone really, unless you brought an audience, right? I think, it was Tim
Mhm.
Ferriss or Joe Rogan. Someone asked you, what's the number one ingredient to having a successful podcast? And he was like, number one, be famous, right? If you
Yeah.
already have some fame and you come into the situation, of course it's easy. No, I think what's interesting is listeners should not be your primary goal, which is funny if you're listening to this because then you're thinking, what? But it's true, right? There should be some other goals other than just listener numbers. It borders on a vanity metric where you're like, well, what are you going to do with that? You got 30,000 more listens. You got 4 more listens. What are you going to do with that? Right. And
Mhm.
at some point, maybe you get a sponsorship. I understand, but generally speaking, it's not very actionable. So the kind of podcasting that I do, I call it connection casting. So connection casting is all about creating a connection with your guest. It's not about your listeners. It's not about the sponsors, the company that's paying you to do this show. It's literally get rid of everything else and just focus on my guests. Are they crushing it? Do they feel like they had a chance to get that stuff out that they've been holding in for a long time? Have we created relationship? Have we created trust, right? Connection casting, the reward, the result, the ROI, it's all about the guest. It's what we were talking about earlier. If that guest is someone who could partner with you and, send referrals your way, or put in a good word for you in a community, or I don't know, just make your day happier because they're really fun. But all these things, right? If you think about, man, if I just get a connection, if I just get a relationship that I never had before with someone who maybe I wouldn't even get the time of day with, right? Either they're just this crazy executive at American Express who I would just never dream of having on, or an author, or, like for me, it was Rand Fishkin. A couple weeks ago, had a chance to interview him. He was like I say childhood marketing hero, but I probably wasn't a child when I was starting marketing. But you know what I'm saying? Like I've been listening to his thought
he's a
leadership
legend, especially in the sales
legend,
world.
right?
Yeah.
So I had a chance to interview him. I thought that's just the coolest thing, right? Now you can intersperse those in there, but the rest of these should be, can this person maybe buy from me? Are they an ideal customer? And the crazy thing is when you're playing those games, you can't really target that well. You can decide, should I go to this conference or shouldn't I? But who they get there is not really up to you. It's up to the conference to who they get there. So yeah, you're rolling the dice all the time. But with a podcast invite, instead of being like a mass marketing type thing, it's a very individualized thing. Does this particular person at this particular organization, are they a good decision maker? Are they the right decision maker? And is this company the absolute best target to work with me? Like, can I help them? Do they need me? Can I help them? You can really zero in on that. And if your ROI in your podcast is, well, you know what? I had 4 amazing hour-long conversations with some real potentials. And afterward, a couple of them took me up on my demo. And I got to tell you, podcasting is amazing for converting to demos. If you're anyone involved in SaaS and marketing, podcasts, professional services, there's some trickier things to do. If you have a demo, man, do we see huge conversion rates from great podcasts? Yeah, I'd love to see that demo. Sometimes the demo even happens right after the recording is done. You hit end recording. I was like, oh yeah, let me pull this thing up real quick. And they're like, yeah, I want to see that. I want to see that. What does that look like, right? Why? Because you picked the exact right person who actually needs your stuff and they want to see it. They're curious. And so if your targeting is really hardcore, you don't even have to push hard on the sales side. They just want to know the information.
Yeah. I have to say that I did a little bit of an experiment at SaaS Talk last week, and I probably had about 19, I think I had exactly 19 scheduled one-on-one meetings. And then I probably had another 20 or so ad hoc where you stroll up to a booth, or maybe you're at the bar at the event after the show, and you strike up conversations. And so far, my success rate from certain people I invited onto the podcast as my follow-up, and other people I invited onto a discovery call, which is kind of my sales route. But my conversion rate to the podcast is like 5 times higher. I think I got 4 or 5 bookings from that. So it's well over 50% versus, maybe I shouldn't say, but a much lower percent on the discovery call acceptance or conversion rate so far, even though it's only been a few days. And that also tells me a lot too, which is that people, having just met me, maybe found me kind of interesting in what I had to say at the conference. But when you're at a conference, it all washes over you, and probably you get out of a conference and you've met people and it's all a blur. So when somebody follows up, hey, we did meet, maybe you remember my face. We talked about this. I've got this show. I'd love to have you on because I want to learn more about whatever.
You'd give them a gift of your time and attention. Zig Ziglar has this cool quote. I love this. And he says, this is like this ancient book writer, philosophical guy, and all about relationships and connections and friends. And he wrote that if people like you, they'll listen to you. And if people trust you, they'll buy from you, right? So I get the sense that at that conference, people had enough time to like you. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I met this guy. He's Paris. But you're right. There's like 100 other people. So you're reminding them, hey, let's hop on this pod and remind you how much fun we had in person, or even that brief little moment where I think we could hit it off, right? But nothing like a podcast to then help with that second half, which is, how do we get people to trust us? That's the big problem in sales, right? Is, okay, who can I trust? We all know sales is just moving you down the pipeline. So how can I trust someone? And one of the key ingredients, and you'll learn this from even like relationship coaching, is to say what you're going to do and then actually do it. And nothing like a podcast for creating that kind of environment. And one of the key ingredients for that is having a little bit of a prep call where you tell people up front, hey, this is who I am. Remember me? And we had we hit it off.
Mhm.
And you're starting a little bit of a trust here, right?
Yeah. Well, how do you reach out when this is something that we've tested lots of different things, but when you do reach out after you've got that ideal list, what is the best way to get somebody to who doesn't know you or you haven't met to come on your show? How do you pitch?
Well, I wrote a book on marketing automation. It's called Marketing Automation Unleashed. And it's great if you want to do email nurturing, but it is not the idea if you want to get a podcast guest, right? So take my book that I wrote on nurturing and use that for your email campaigns. But when it comes to podcasting, you got to remember it's a one-to-one initiative, right? And we'll talk about later, it's very scalable, but this is not
Mhm.
an automation. So the worst thing you could do is take that automation bulk mentality to podcast invites. I know. Let me go grab one of those apps on LinkedIn that just auto invites 3,000 people and I pay lots of money. And let me send them a message. Oh, and I could cut out a step by putting a link in that invite. Here, please be on my podcast. Click this link and fill out this Calendly form that automatically books it on my calendar and automatically discovers things about you so I can ask you about those on the show, right? That is completely not the right way to do it. I've received invites like that where you just feel like you're
Yeah,
in
non-personalized.
a machine, right? And not even not personalized. You could just feel the marketing. You could feel
Mhm.
and what's crazy is it's like a fake importance. Like if you're inviting someone onto a podcast, it's either a really cool thing or it's a complete scam, right? And so the people that would try to trick you and have you click on links and that kind of thing, it goes against everything we've been talking about. Those personal relationships, getting out in front, getting FaceTime with people. A little prep call. Oh no, it's another half an hour. It's another 15 minutes. Yeah, it's another 15 minutes with my ideal customer, talking to them, learning from them, building relationship and rapport and all these things. Yeah, do that. And so what I like to do is nothing automated. I love to reach out to someone. LinkedIn's a great platform for that and send them a quick invite, even a connection request with a note and say, hey, I would love to talk with you about, XYZ strategy on my marketing podcast.
Mhm.
It's a conversational. We have a lot of fun. We do a quick prep call, right? What was missing from that? There was no link. I don't even put a call to action. Why? A call to action just goes, I'm a marketing message, right?
You don't link to the podcast, like on
Nope.
Apple or
Nope.
uh
I don't even tell them what it's called. I'm just like, hey, I
huh.
want you to be on my podcast. We talk marketing. And I want to talk particularly now, if you like, I've done this before. I see someone's awesome blog post or they just totally spit fire on LinkedIn. And I'm like, whoa.
Mhm.
And so I'll send them a note saying, like, what you just said was amazing. Can you please share that with me and my listeners on my podcast? That would be awesome. Right? Send. Let them connect. And remember, what we're competing with is all that crappy, all the games that people are playing saying, notice me. So the typical reaction is here's this 9-paragraph initial message on LinkedIn with an
Mhm.
automated follow-up message and an automated follow-up and a link and all this crap, right? So just like an email, to get away from that, you got to look different, got to be different. And so it's a
Mhm.
personalized message from Casey. I'm not capitalizing everything. I'm not even throwing in the brands. I'm just saying, hey, I'm a person, you're a person. I love the chat, love to honor you and learn from you on the show.
Nice. I like that approach, yeah, because I would say getting back to this ROI of podcasting, I think for me, it's my own learning and my own inspiration too. That is what gives me the ROI. I think there's also that spark that when I wrap up a great show, gives me a jolt of energy that maybe I didn't
Yeah.
have yet that day, and that inspiration it keeps me going. It's kind of fuels me in a sense, and
Do you ever find yourself writing down to-dos? Like I'll be taking notes as I'm learning from a guest. Even our conversation the other day, I'm learning from you, blah, blah, blah. And then my brain goes, oh, yeah, we should do X, Y. So on the right-hand side, I have little squares with to-dos of things I want to do after this podcast. You're right. It's inspiration. Like, yeah, I actually should do that. And I should do that, And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I hear you, man. It's very inspirational.
Yeah. Now, a quick word from our sponsor. The Paris Talks Marketing Show is affiliated with Hop Online, a performance marketing agency focused on high growth SaaS and other recurring revenue based companies. If you like the flow of this conversation, you may want to consider jumping on a discovery call with someone at Hop Online. A discovery call is similar to my podcast interviews in a lot of ways. We'll get to know your business goals, competitive landscape, and marketing needs. And you'll almost certainly come away with some new ideas for how to accelerate your customer and revenue growth. If you're interested, go to hop.online, that's hop, H-O-P .online, and book a discovery call with one of our strategists today. Now, back to the episode. Hey, how many are you doing per month or per week? How many shows are you putting out?
I think really at a minimum, you want to go weekly. Weekly show. You need some kind of cadence because I take this back to even my own behaviors, right? So sometimes my own behaviors can help inform what I would either want to listen to or how I'd want to like operate that podcast. Doesn't mean I'm not every buyer persona, right? But what I like to say is like create a podcast that you would want to listen to yourself, you know? Weekly is a great way to start. You can scale it though. You can go twice a week, 3 times a week, more. And just think, you're just chatting with that many more potential customers. And your competitors are probably chatting with 0 of them.
Yeah. In general, Casey, what excites you most about the future in professionally or personally? Anything?
I love the monopoly on people's eyes and ears is very quickly eroding, right? It's no longer, at least in the US, it was, the ABC, CBS, NBC. There's certain channels you watched and you paid extra for other goofy channels. And it's not really about the channel, like all those biggies anymore. And people got their news from 3 places. So just as news has gotten decentralized, entertainment and listening and eyes and learning and all of this is getting decentralized to the point where there are all these micro creators that are, we've had YouTube creators for a long time, but what I think excites me the most is the fact that creatorship is becoming marketing ship, right? Like marketing is creating. And that's, I think, what we always wanted it to be when we got into marketing in the first place was to create and be creative, a little bit analytical and track things as well. But we didn't get into it to write scripts and series of ongoing emails. We got in it to connect with people and learn and share and create amazing things. And so I see it shifting back to that. And the other thing that excites me is it doesn't require insane amounts of tech and prep and gear. Right? I like that people are getting more authentic. You don't need to be in a studio. You can be recording podcasts and conversations in your office. Yes, you want to get a good mic, but good mic is like $60 US. It's not 400. It's not you don't need that. You don't need the crazy camera. You can just do it right from where you're at. So not only is marketing going toward creatorship, but it's also now at a position where we can actually grasp it.
Yeah. I was speaking with someone just this morning about when we started on the topic of SEO and how SEO is going to change with generative AI and the fact that this is no longer really a competitive advantage when everybody's going to be pushing out AI produced content. And so then I asked them, so then what? Are you just going to do paid, and just get all of your traffic and conversions from paid media? How are you still need to build a brand. And if you're not going to do that with great content that you're going to publish on your website, then what else? And he said, well, I guess we need to try to become a little mini media of our own. And we need to develop some personality, and we need to not only educate people, but we need to entertain them. And maybe it's even a little bit more important that we entertain them.
Yeah.
And if they get a little bit of education, great. But they're going to come for the entertainment more than the education, because what we offer, it's in a crowded SaaS category, and the stuff that they would talk about has been talked about ad nauseum, and they don't have so much of a extremely unique perspective to bring to that conversation. But they've got a great product; they do a great job, and so we started brainstorming. All right, well, what would that look like? How would you entertain people? How would you bring in? This guy in particular had a real interest in sports psychology and building winning teams on the sports fields, and how that might intersect with building a winning team in marketing. And then that brainstorm led us to some concepts for some sort of a show or a podcast. And well, what do you think? Do you think it's even possible for all brands to try to become media? I mean, is there enough eyeballs and ears out there to consume all that?
Yes, definitely. They should all become media brands. Everyone, every company, that's where we're going. And if you're not, you're just out. No, you don't get shopped. You don't get looked at. Even Rand Fishkin said SEO is not going to be doing it. right? It's the guy who did SEO and taught us how to do it for 20, how many years
Oh
is
yeah.
saying that's not it, right? So what do? Direct mail now? And some people are trying it again because what else can you possibly do? I don't know. Create a media brand and connect with your customers in it, right? So it's a two-part thing. It's not just creating content, but creating content where you're connecting with your audience as well, right? So, imagine a TV show where you got a chance to chat with the host. Well, I'd be pretty interested in. And every time you see that show in the future, you're like, well, I was on that show. It was really cool, right? I can't wait to
Mhm.
see future episodes of this podcast come out because I'm like, I was on that. I remember what that was like. That was really cool. And now I want to go check this one out again. So you're involving your listeners, you're involving your audience in it. But to your second question, are there enough eyes and ears out there? I would say it doesn't matter, right? Because you don't want all the eyes and ears. Joe Rogan doesn't even want them either, but he has them, right? But he
Mhm.
got them by not even caring about getting them. But a lot of people that care and they're trying to get more eyes and ears watching, it's tough because there's a lot of people out there doing it, and Mr. Beast is pretty good at what he does. So let's not try to compete with him, right? You're not trying to compete with Mr. Beast and Joe Rogan. You don't want everyone listening to your show, right? Like, and even you, Paris, like, do you want like people in finance and people in, I don't know, waste reclamation and mining listening to your show if they have nothing to do with marketing? Well, you can if you want to. You're not going to kick them
Mhm.
out, but
Mhm.
if they find it boring, is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. It's not for them, right?
Mhm.
So I think in the past we had to have shows that appealed to everyone. You don't anymore. Netflix is proving that with all sorts of wacky shows that
Yeah.
just a few people want to see, but a few people across millions is awesome. So you don't want every
Yeah.
eyeball. You don't want every ear. You want your customers' eyes and ears.
Yeah. Good point.
You know what's crazy? I say this, but like half the people listening, not your half, but you know what? Everyone listening is going to understand it. But on other podcasts, if I've been on and I say that, no one hears that. They go, "Oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Cool. I'm going to name my podcast Everybody on the Planet Earth Should Listen." Right? It's
Mhm.
like, did you not hear me? So one of the trends to really pay attention to is micro segmentation, right? We all know about segmentation. We're all marketers here, but micro segmentation, yeah. Don't try to get everyone listening. But what would happen if you got, let's say you've got 10,000 target accounts and, 25% of them listen to your podcast and then told the rest about it. And like, what would that even feel like and I'll tell you what it feels like when you go to a trade show, people are coming up to you and going, "Hey, I heard your podcast. Exciting. Hey, can we get our VP on there?" And you're suddenly like, wow, you're not anyone famous, but suddenly at that conference you are at that micro segment, those people know you and they know you really well because they've listened to you for hundreds of hours, right? The people listening to this, they know me a little bit. Maybe they like me. Maybe I'm driving them crazy, but they know you because they've heard you and they've heard you ask questions of all kinds of guests. So they feel like they really know you. So when they come up to you, they have like a one-sided, like and trust that they haven't even fully developed with you yet. But that's a great place to start. Hey, you already like and trust me? Cool. I'd like to learn about you so I can like you back, trust you
Mhm.
back.
Yeah. So Casey, I'm gonna pull another play out of your playbook with this question, but again, I like it so much. I've got to ask, and you probably know what's coming. What advice would you give to your college graduating self around, to say, 21 years old, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, really good question. And what I've had a chance to ask this question a lot, and always makes you think like, what would you answer? And so my answer to this one is to, hey, go look for that intersection where your passion and your expertise, and even if you don't have an expertise, follow that passion, right? Because I think early on in school and other places, we're taught to take every subject, right? And learn everything about everything. And again, generalize. And some of that's good. You
Mhm.
should know a little about world history and that kind of, okay, fair. But, if my passion isn't math, maybe I shouldn't take 8 classes deep in math, right? And so, or be stuck in a major that was math. And so when you get out in the world and you're working in jobs, where are your passions? And it took me a while to realize, oh, there's a passion here. And then, oh my gosh, a whole company around marketing automation and Pardot. It just sort of sprouted up. And it felt like overnight, but really is because I'd been passionate about a topic for a long time and I wouldn't shut
Mhm.
up about it. So what's that topic where if someone asked you about it at a party, you would get borderline annoying, but really excited and animated talking about that thing? That's probably the thing you should be working at. That's
Mhm.
probably the thing. And so that's what I would tell myself is, what are those stories that you're telling right now? parties, or if, your parents ask what's up and you want to tell them about things, what are those things that strike your interest? And then just go all in on those things.
Cool. We discovered, I think, in one of our earlier chats that we have a common interest in longevity, which it is becoming a popular subject. And I think everybody that is into that and doing any practicing longevity has their own routines. I'd like to hear a little bit from you about this. What's your approach to longevity? What kind of either daily or regular routines do you have to be like what we all in this field hope for, which is to live to 100 or a little beyond if we're lucky? What do you do?
I will confess that I am not Andrew Huberman on this topic, but I love listening to interviews on podcasts and YouTube about this topic, right? And that's, we're both students of this, not necessarily
Mhm.
masters. So I'll just sort of answer descriptively, not prescriptively, right? Because I don't know what to tell you, but I know some of the things that I've been experiencing.
Yeah, I should also qualify that most likely neither of us are really qualified to give any advice here. That's a different type of show. We're not Andrew Huberman here, but
Well,
that guy knows his stuff.
two things come to mind. One is, there's that old story. Yeah, maybe it's been heard, maybe it's not been heard, about goldfish. I don't know if you heard about this, where goldfish essentially
Mhm.
will grow to a ratio size of the container they're in. So if
Mhm.
they're in a bigger container, they'll grow larger. And if they're a little container,
Okay.
they'll stay little. And I
Mhm.
didn't know this for a long time. And so you start hearing it every now and then in podcasts and stories. But if you give a goldfish a larger container, they're going to grow to become a larger fish. And so they're very much limited by their surroundings, right? And so I think about that a lot when it comes to longevity. And I think the first limiter is even just the idea of when you go. And there's a lot of people like Dan Sullivan even talking about, put a number out there, but make it a big one. Because what ends up happening is whatever number you have in mind is usually what ends up happening, right? And so there's
Mhm.
classic conversations with doctors where if a doctor tells you this is the worst, this is terrible. If a doctor tells you you have 6 months and you believe them, that will fulfill itself. Like
Mhm.
that's how much time you have left. But if they tell you longer, oftentimes you'll live longer. Or if you just flatly reject their thought on that, a lot of survivors of different things will
Mhm.
blow past that amount because they just flatly reject that amount. But in my mind, it's like if I were to limit myself, so I like to just put the number out there like 120. Now I always,
That's a
you
number I
know,
had in my head too, which is
yeah,
mhm.
105, give myself the larger goldfish bowl, right? And thinking about that. And then the second thing tying to environment is just literally environment. So I'm often trying to get out hiking in the summer and the spring and skiing in the winter. I just intentionally decided was like I want to make winter my season, right? I don't want to hide anymore in the winter time. And I'd skied as a kid, and so I kind of had a little foundation there. But I thought, let me just go pick this thing up and see if I can do it. And you can. It's like riding a bike. Now I'm looking forward to snow, right? I can't wait. So I think there's something to do environment, getting outside, being aware of when you're around bad things. Are you around chemicals and exhaust and all this stuff? Can you get fresh air? Can you get out in the wilderness? There's also been studies on being around water. So, hiking is one thing, but hiking over
Mhm.
stream, can you be around water as often as you can is another thing I think about. But I will also confess, I have not figured out, and I saw one today, this morning, this guy, he breaks the ice on an outdoor bathtub,
Mhm.
measures the water. He says like -7 degrees, this and 7 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever it was. It was really cold, right? And then he hops in, doesn't make a sound, stares at you, and he says some like motivational thing. You're like, damn. I mean, I would be wincing. I'd be going like, God, but no, he just gets right in there. So I have not got to that point. And I do wonder about the cold shower. I mean, I've heard all the studies on it, but
Mhm.
man, in the morning, sometimes I just want to get a little love.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of on the balance with, do I freeze myself in the morning in a shower or not? I've heard so many great benefits, but I don't know. Where are you at with that? Do you do those?
I do them. Yeah, I do the cold
You're
shower
one guy.
right at the end.
I got
I've
to
gotten
follow you on
used to it.
Instagram.
It's still unpleasant though, but
Yeah. Okay.
it gives me a ton of energy and I get through it. I usually sit under for like about 2 minutes or so. And believe me, when that hits this ball dome up here,
Oh man.
I feel it. Yeah. But that's usually almost every day. And it certainly shocks the system. And I think one of the core principles of longevity is to do things that just make you uncomfortable and that kind of trick your body to go into a quasi survival mode for a
Uh,
brief moment where oh shit, because it's freezing cold water, or maybe you skip a meal and your body starts to think, oh no, when is the next meal coming? I better start conserving these resources and cleaning up stuff.
Totally, man.
Yes, awesome. Well, Casey, I think we could go on for hours here.
Good,
This has
man.
been a lot of
What do you
fun.
think? Marathon episode? So
Yeah,
LinkedIn
this
kicks
is,
us
this is
off.
already this is already probably one of the longest that I've done. But let me give you a chance. You've got a lot of cool stuff in the works, but people that want to reach out to you, where's the best place to connect and find you?
Totally. It's Casey at ringmaster.com. Shoot me an
Mhm.
email, connect with me, go to ringmaster.com, check out the different shows we create. And they're all custom. Now that you're sort of in on the thing, they're all custom to who are they trying to chat with? Who are the ideal guests for those shows? So what I would say is if you have a podcast, you need an executive producer. I'm happy to get on a call with you for half an hour, chat with you about what I'm seeing. There might be some low hanging fruit. There might be some growth that maybe you've already done the hard work and you just need a couple other things to happen, maybe a slight tweak to the show. And now it's growing as well as really getting what you need from the guest. So I'm happy to chat with you. We also do a 10-point growth check as an executive producer on
Mhm.
your pod of like, oh, did you know oh man, if you just got a couple more reviews, you'd hit that threshold. Apple really sending the charts, Spotify sending the charts, right? So maybe there's a couple low hanging fruit things that your show could use. And so we're happy to either, I could hop on a call or do this podcast audit for you. If you don't have a podcast, you'll also need an executive producer. And so I'm happy we do this brainstorm session. This is fun. We sit down with the team, all of our creatives, and we learn about who your customer is and what they mean to you and what kind of sales process you have. And then we come up with some ideas of what your podcast could look like and what kind of guests you could have on there, what kind of questions you could ask them. You don't even need to work with us necessarily as your producers or executive producers, but we just want to get the juices flowing and get you thinking about that. Don't forget to say where you heard about this from. Give Paris some ROI credit, right? Let me know where you first heard me. But yeah, I'd love to help.
Awesome. Well, Casey, this has been a blast. I had a blast on your show, and this was also a lot of fun. Can't wait to get this published. And thanks for spending the time with me today. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, Paris. Honor's all mine. I appreciate your time, your attention. This is a gift. Thank you.
Great. Thank you too. Another great episode in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get notified when future episodes drop, be sure to subscribe to Paris Talks Marketing on your favorite podcast player. And to learn more about our growth marketing agency, visit hop.online. That's hop, H-O-P.online. Have a great day.